Let's convene a task force on all of this and look at what is next for Madoff and those investors that have lost so much, and we keep hearing new names every day, don't we? Joining us this hour, Tom Gorman, chair of the SEC Litigation Practice Group at Porter Wright, and David Rosenfield. I had the pleasure of talking with him last night on CNBC Reports. He's securities litigator at Herrick Feinstein. Both formerly worked at the Securities and Exchange Commission. Gentlemen, good to see you. Thank you for joining us today.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
Let's do this topic by topic on some of the pointed issues as it pertains to the Madoff case. And let's start with something that Judge Stanton's going to have to rule on, whether or not those investors who lost money by indirectly investing in Madoff funds should be covered by the SIPC's insurance fund. David, I know that you're going after the SEC. Your firm has filed suit against the SEC and all of this. But do those individual investors, should they qualify for SIPC insurance in this case, do you think?
Well, the SIPC fund basically has two prongs that it covers in terms of people who invested with a broker-dealer. The first is people that bought securities with a broker-dealer. Those customers that opened and maintained accounts at the broker-dealer, they're covered under SIPC. The second prong is those individuals that paid cash to a broker-dealer, a brokerage firm, those people are covered. So if you go by the strict language of the SIPC statute, it would tend to indicate that those investors that invested through funds may not be covered. But there is some wiggle room. It doesn't specifically say you must be a direct investor. So the judge may have the ability to broaden it, and given the extraordinary circumstances of this case, the judge may decide to do that.
Tom, do you think that the judge can do that? I mean, do you think that he has the authority to do that, and do you think he would?
I think that's a very creative suggestion. I've seen some of the letters from some of the investors to the judge on this, and it's a very creative idea. Unfortunately, I don't believe that the judge has the statutory authority to do what they'd like him to do. The statute is relatively limited. It really is focused, as David said, on the people who were investing through the broker-dealer. So I don't look for the judge in this case to expand coverage, much as he might want to do it because of the very sympathetic nature of the losses here.
All right, let's bring up another topic here, and this is pertinent to today's filing. Where's the money? Does anybody believe we're going to get a full disclosure on this, especially when you consider if any money is overseas? As I understand it, Tom, they may not have to disclose that, or am I wrong about that?
No, the order is quite specific. Mr. Madoff is supposed to disclose all of his assets. There's a list in the SEC's order, and remember, he consented to having this order entered. This wasn't imposed on him so much by the court as he and his lawyers negotiated this with the SEC, and they consented to it. So it's supposed to disclose holdings at what they call foreign entities in that order, and he's supposed to cooperate with getting those assets out. Because
David, what are the chances he's going to be completely honest?
I think that there's at least a reasonable chance that he's going to be completely honest. You know, the FBI visited him on December 11th, and he pretty much admitted everything to the FBI then. And he said, I expect to go to jail and that there's no money, and this has been going on for years. Given that he's made those admissions, I think that there's certainly a possibility, a reasonable possibility, that he's going to disclose everything he has and wherever it is.
All right. Wow. Gentlemen, stick around. We're going to open this up some more. We got a lot more questions to be answered in the Madoff scandal on this deadline day. Could he have acted alone? What kind of defense can he mount right now? We've been hearing some rumblings about what his strategy might be on that regard. We'll get to that in just a few minutes here.
And as we close out this year, hope springs eternal.
You know, one moment I was enjoying a very, very happy life, teaching a fitness class and yoga class over at the gym, and suddenly I get a phone call from some friends of mine, and in 1 minute, I find out that my whole net worth is just about gone.
Thousands of people went through that. Yeah, we know that.
Story after story after story. In fact, we'll be meeting more of those people next hour here on Power Lunch. Back with our task force on the Madoff situation. Tom Gorman with Porter Wright, David Rosenfield from Herrick Feinstein. And one of the questions that everybody wants an answer to is, could he have done this by himself? And you have
Absolutely not. I think the better question is who helped him, because somebody's got to type up all that paperwork, and somebody's got to go back and say, they got to reconstruct past trades that would have been profitable. So you got to get to the end of the month, you got to look, okay, this trade of this, I'm going to do. Everything was faked so dramatically, one person couldn't possibly do it. Tom, David, Tom, what do you think? I mean, how many people needed to be in on this scheme to get this done?
I agree with you. I don't see how this scheme, given its breadth, how many years it went on and how complicated it is, I don't see any way this could have been done by one person. I think the real critical question here, though, is there may be people who did ministerial things and didn't know what was going on. So the question is going to be, what did the other people actually know about what Madoff was doing?
Which is a key point, David, is it not? I mean, because you can set up a computer program that would generate returns. It's like the black box model in a way. The computer will tell you how you could make profits, and then you could have people administratively just basically do the paperwork for you with their not knowing that it was a scheme. Does that ring true to you or not?
Yeah, that's certainly possible. And Madoff very well may have compartmentalized and told different people different things. The people on it's the 17th floor. There were 8 or 10 people on the 17th floor. The question is, which of those people knew about it, which of those people assisted him, and right now we don't know the answer to that. We do know the Sun said everything was under lock and key. We didn't get to the 17th floor.
Hey, Tom, about those Suns, let's say the Suns were not complicit and involved. Aren't they still liable for failing to ask questions, for failing to make sure everything was on the up and up?
That, again, that's a very interesting question. The question there will be whether or not they had enough knowledge that they really should have known. It's one thing to say they didn't actually know because he didn't tell them, but they were around day in and day out, and one has to wonder if they didn't at least have enough knowledge that they should have said, what's going on under lock and key? What's going on with the secret books?
Hey, David, Michelle has pointed out that the feds are going to hold off from going after the Suns because you got to wait, you got to work that out, you got to gather all your evidence first. But I feel like the feds ought to have those 2 Suns sequestered and locked up. They should be out Christmas shopping. They should be having to talk to the feds. What do you think?
Well, you can't just lock them up unless you've got evidence that they participated in a crime. And by the way, the Suns have been fully cooperating, as far as we know, with the government since the very beginning.
I've read the government hasn't talked to them since they first turned in their father. I in the journal that the government agents have not interviewed them, have not gone after them.
Well, that may be. I do know what I read in the complaint is that the first day the feds debriefed them and found out as much as presumably plenty of what they knew at the time. So they did cooperate at the beginning, and once you start cooperating, it's very difficult to put the skids on and stop cooperating. So I anticipate they will keep cooperating.
Last topic, and we've heard rumblings. Of course, Madoff has admitted this, but we've heard rumblings that maybe they're working on some sort of an insanity defense. That he didn't know what he was doing, but does that wash?
30 years?
Yeah, how does that wash, Tom? Would that work?
That's an interesting thought, but it may be tempting to think that that's how he got into this, but no, legally, I don't think that's going to work. I think the real intent question here is, did Bernie Madoff start off to have the world's biggest Ponzi scheme, or did he stumble into it and then try to fix it and create this mess?
At this point, is that even relevant, David?
Yeah, well, the whole thing about the insanity scheme is insanity is something that happens generally very quickly, very briefly. You blank out, you do something crazy. You don't do it over 30 years. And if he raises insanity defense now, people might think he's insane right now for doing that. But I don't think that will go anywhere.
A Rip Van Winkle defense or something like that. Tom Gorman, David Rosenfield, good to see you both. Thank you. Happy New Year.
You
Same
too.
to you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.